Hey there, it's Pastor Burdine. Welcome to Route 66, day number 87. Grab your Bibles and open it up. And we've got 5 chapters today. It's not very often that we read 5 chapters. Sometimes we read 2. There's one time we read just 1 chapter. As we're making this journey through the Bible, we're in 1 Samuel chapter 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Chapter 5, there's some trouble with the Ark of the Covenant. The Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant and they put it in their temple. Their god Dagon. But Dagon falls down and breaks the idol that they put in. The people begin to be sick and they realize this is God's judgment. They move it from city to city, but nobody wants it. Get rid of it. Nobody wants it. Every city it goes to, the people suffer. So finally in chapter 6, they decide that they're going to send it back to Israel with an offering, hoping the sickness will stop. So they get 2 cows and they pull it back and it goes straight to the Israelites. When it arrives, the people look inside, which was forbidden, and they die. If you've seen the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, similar to that. But anyway, that's kind of a Hollywood version of it. But they did. They weren't supposed to open it up, and they did. But that wasn't good. Chapter 7, Samuel leads them to victory. The last time we saw they were defeated, but now Samuel leads them to victory. He tells the people to get away from idols, return back to God. They fast, they confess their sins, and they pray. Philistines attack. Samuel cries out to God, and God helps them win the battle. And Samuel sets up a stone as a reminder, and it calls it Ebenezer. It always reminds me of Ebenezer Scrooge. But Ebenezer is a witness to what God has done. And that's a good thing to always have a witness to the blessings that God has given us. In chapter 8, Israel wants a king. Samuel's getting older. They don't like what his boys are doing. They're very much like what Eli's sons were doing. And Samuel gets upset, but God says, no, it's okay. They want a king. We're going to give him a king. They're rejecting God's leadership. We're going to give them the kind of king that they want. So Samuel warns them. He's going to take your sons and your daughters and your crops. You know, he's going to have big government. You're not going to like it. But if you want a king, God will provide a king. And in chapter 9, the king is chosen. Saul became the next king. He is tall. He is handsome. He looks the part of a king. And Saul's looking for some lost donkeys and ends up being chosen by God through Samuel to be Israel's first king. Samuel privately anoints him and tells him that God has a plan for his life. And so this begins the first king of the nation of Israel. So some lessons that we can learn from these 5 chapters, going all the way back to the Ark of the Covenant and the trouble that happened. God is powerful and holy. We can't treat him like a trophy or take his presence lightly. He deserves respect and worship. He is God. And they misjudged that. Chapter 6, but God is merciful. He rules, and we must respect him. We must treasure holy things with reverence. The Philistines realized what God was like, and it caused great fear in their life. And we have to have that balance between a love for God and a fear for God. Kind of like I had with my dad on a smaller scale. I loved him, but I was afraid of him, depending on my relationship with him. Another lesson we learn is when we turn back to God with a sincere heart, he hears and helps us, just like he did to the nation of Israel. Never forget to thank God when he's been good to you. Never do that. Always do that. Always come back to God and thank you for it. Israel asked for a king, and God gave him what they wanted. Be careful what you ask for, because sometimes God will give it to you. Sometimes when we want things that God knows is not best for us, but because we ask him and he just says, okay, I'm going to show you that you don't always know what's best. God's way is always best. That's why I think it's in the book of James. It says that when we ask God, we should always ask if it's in his will. And that's a good thing to say. God, if it's in your will, I'm asking you for this. And then the last chapter, when Saul was chosen, God sees more than we do. God can use ordinary people for extraordinary purpose when we follow his leading. One thing about Saul, if you'll notice, Saul was pretty humble at this point, and God chose to use him to be the greatest one in the country, the king. And God will use humble people to do his work. But we find out that Saul eventually becomes arrogant and proud, and it doesn't end up well for him. So good reading today. Quite a few chapters.